My name is Emily, and the story I'm about to share is one that still keeps me up at night, even years after it happened. It's one of those stories that makes my skin crawl just to think about, but I feel like I need to tell it, not only as a way to help myself heal, but also as a warning to anyone else who might find themselves in a similar situation. It all started during my final year of college. I had moved into an off campus apartment, a quiet two-bedroom unit on the third floor of a building that was several decades old. My roommate at the time, Sarah, had just left for a study abroad program, leaving me alone in the apartment for the first time since we moved in. I was excited to have the place to myself, but I also couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in when I closed the door behind her for the last time. The first week was fine. I enjoyed having the freedom to cook at odd hours and watch whatever movies I wanted without feeling like I was imposing. But it was during the second week that I first noticed something strange. I had just come home from a long day of classes, and the apartment felt different. You know when you just feel like someone has been in your space? That feeling was there, a heaviness, a tension that made the air hard to breathe. I walked into the living room and paused. My throw blanket, which I always kept draped over the back of the couch, was now crumpled up in a heap on the seat. I frowned. Maybe I had tossed it there without thinking, but I knew it wasn't like me to leave things out of place. I brushed it off, chalking it up to forgetfulness, and went about my evening. But the strange feelings didn't stop there. A few days later, I noticed the window in my bedroom was slightly open. I never opened that window, mainly because the screen was broken and it was always too much of a hassle to deal with. My heart skipped a beat. Had someone been in my room? I checked the locks on the doors and windows, and everything seemed fine. Again, I convinced myself it was nothing, but deep down, I felt the knot of fear beginning to twist tighter in my stomach. It was a Thursday night when things escalated. I had finished my last class for the day and decided to stay in and watch some TV. The building was usually quiet, and that night was no exception. The only sounds were the occasional creaks from the old wooden floors above me, but I'd gotten used to them over the past year. As I sat on the couch with a bowl of popcorn, I'd heard something strange, a soft scraping noise, almost like nails against metal. I paused the show and held my breath, listening intently. The noise came again, this time louder. It was coming from the hallway. My heart thudded as I stood up, trying to keep my footsteps light as I made my way to the front door. I peered through the peephole, but all I could see was the dimly lit hallway and the door of the apartment across from mine. I told myself it must be something outside, a branch scraping against the building, or maybe the wind pushing something around. I sat back down on the couch, but I couldn't focus. The uneasy feeling of being watched crept over me, and every small sound seemed amplified. An hour later, just as I was about to go to bed, the scraping started again. This time, it was accompanied by a faint shuffling sound. I tiptoed to the front door, my breath caught in my throat as I listened. The shuffling grew louder, and then it stopped right outside my door. I peered through the peephole again, and my blood ran cold. There was someone standing there, a dark figure in the hallway, just standing there, facing my door. Panic surged through me. I backed away, my heart pounding in my ears as I grabbed my phone from the coffee table. I dialed 911, my hands trembling as I tried to stay as quiet as possible. The operator answered, and I whispered that someone was outside my door. She stayed on the line with me, trying to keep me calm while assuring me that an officer was on the way. The minutes dragged on like hours. I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, my eyes glued to the front door. I could still hear the faint shuffling, and every few moments, I would hear a soft tap, like fingers drumming against the wood. Then, suddenly, it stopped. I held my breath, straining to hear any sound, but the hallway was silent. The police arrived not long after. They knocked on the door, announcing themselves, and I hurried to unlock it. The officers checked the hallway and the rest of the building, but found nothing. They told me that it was probably just a prank, maybe someone from the building messing around. I wanted to believe them, but something in my gut told me that this wasn't just a prank. There was something wrong. The officers left, and I bolted the door behind them. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the building made me jump, and I kept the lights on, too afraid to let the darkness swallow the room. The following day, I tried to shake off the fear. I went to my classes and stayed late at the library, not wanting to be alone in the apartment. When I finally came back, it was almost midnight. The building was quiet, the hallway dimly lit, and as I approached my door, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. There was a note stuck to the door, a piece of lined paper folded in half. My name was scrawled on the front in messy handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The note read, "I see you, Emily. You look so pretty when you're scared." I dropped the note, my stomach lurching as I fumbled with my keys. I burst into the apartment, slamming the door behind me and locking it. I called the police again, my voice shaky as I explained what had happened. The officer on the phone tried to reassure me, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. To them, it was probably just a prank, but to me, it felt like something much worse. Two officers came by to take a report, but again, they didn't find anything. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. They told me to stay with a friend if I felt unsafe, but I had no one nearby. My closest friends were all out of town for the break, and I had no choice but to stay put. That night, I pushed the couch in front of the door. I checked the windows 3 times, making sure they were locked tight. I even wedged a chair under the doorknob of my bedroom, just in case. I lay in bed, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as I tried to calm my racing thoughts. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard it again, the scraping. It was louder this time, more insistent. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering in my chest as I strained to listen. The noise was coming from inside the apartment. I held my breath, my eyes darting to the door of my bedroom. The scraping continued, and then I heard it, a slow, deliberate creak of a floorboard just outside my room. Someone was in the apartment. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed 911 once more. I whispered to the operator that someone was inside, and she told me to stay on the line. I could hear the floorboards creaking, the sound growing closer to my bedroom door. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to stay quiet, praying that whoever it was would just leave. Then, the doorknob rattled. I bit my lip, trying to stifle a sob as I watched the knob turn, the chair wedged under it, preventing it from opening. There was a pause and then a loud bang as the door shook. They were trying to force their way in. The operator told me that officers were on their way, but it felt like they would never get there in time. The door rattled again, the chair holding firm, but I knew it wouldn't last forever. The banging continued, each hit more forceful than the last. Suddenly, the noise stopped. The silence was deafening, and I held my breath, listening. Then I heard it, the sound of footsteps retreating, moving away from the door and back down the hallway. A few moments later, I heard the front door open and close. The police arrived minutes later. They found the front door unlocked, but no sign of the intruder. They searched the apartment, but once again, there was nothing, no evidence, no clues, just the lingering feeling of fear that clung to every corner of the room. I couldn't stay there any longer. I packed a bag and left that night, staying in a hotel until I could figure out what to do. I called my parents, and they insisted that I come home, at least until I felt safe again. I didn't need any convincing. I left the city the next day, leaving behind the apartment and all the nightmares that came with it. Months passed, and I tried to move on. I transferred to a different school, closer to my parents, and found a new apartment, one in a building with better security and neighbors who actually knew each other. But even now, I can't shake the fear. I still hear the scraping in my dreams, still feel the weight of eyes watching me from the shadows. Whoever it was, they knew me. They knew my name, they knew my schedule, and they knew how to terrify me without ever showing their face. And that, more than anything, is what haunts me to this day, the not knowing. The unanswered questions that linger in the dark corners of my mind. I share this story as a warning. If you ever feel like something is wrong, trust your instincts. Don't brush it off. Don't convince yourself that you're overreacting. Because sometimes, the things we fear the most are the things we can't see, the things that hide in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when they do, you might not be as lucky as I was. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for more videos.